White women raise their oppressors. So, what do Black women raise? That's not a moral question. That's a system question. Because when you start looking at society as a system, you realize that everyone has a role. And it's not been chosen, it's been assigned. And motherhood is important, not because women birth the new generation, but motherhood is one of the most important roles in the system because it determines what type of people enter the world and what they become. So, if white women are raising men who move through the world with a sense of entitlement, so then we have to ask, what are Black women being positioned to raise? Guys, if you have not already, go ahead, subscribe to my channel, and let's get into my notes on Black motherhood's role in the system. I definitely grew up in a raise your daughters but love your sons type of household. My mother may have been head of household, but patriarchy definitely ran it. And that is probably true for a lot of Black households when a man is present or without one. And it really doesn't matter because patriarchy is not dependent on a man being there. It's a structure. The model that we are taught to recreate is the white nuclear family structure. Husband, wife, children, clear roles, clear hierarchy. And we continue to believe that this model represents stability, success, safety. So the Black community tried to align with it, replicate it, perform it. And as a result, communities were burned, defunded, poisoned, over-policed, contained. I don't feel like we asked the most important question because it's uncomfortable. Was that model really ever meant to work for us? Or were we being trained to perform something that would always be destabilized? I always hear people say that there was a time where Black men were in the household and things were better. But what does better even mean? More stable or more aligned with a system that felt legible to power? Because back then, Black men were still playing hierarchy, whether it be in the streets, social circles, or survival structures. Because we never asked the question, if it was so good, then why did they leave? Oh yeah, Black women. They're the problem. While men were playing hierarchy, Black women seemed to be adapting into any role that was available. And not because of choice, but limitation. So the question isn't did the model actually work, but whether it was ever real. Because if it was so great, how did the structure fail? Was it always just performance held together under pressure until the system disrupted it again? Black women were assigned to raise children in instability, create emotional safety without any sort of structural support, prepare sons for a world that will criminalize them and still somehow teach them to lead. It seems like an impossible design. There's two sides of it because raising boys in a patriarchy means that you need to raise them to believe in their inherent power because of maleness, while none of you actually have any power in the system. We are still raising boys to seek hierarchy. How do you raise boys to stop seeking hierarchy when you model hierarchy all around them? When hierarchy is the only language they see modeled as power? When you think about how you were raised, what were you actually being prepared for? Not what you were told, but what you were being trained for. Were you being trained to be free or to survive something? Because those are not the same. Because if survival is the foundation, then everything built on top of that will carry the same logic. So the question becomes, are we raising our children to truly live or just to endure? Someone left a comment on one of my videos saying that basically a Black man is probably one of the worst things that could happen to her. Like, damn. And that doesn't come from nowhere. It comes from experience, from pattern recognition, from repeated outcomes. And generally, the conversation always collapses into blame. This is not about mothers having failed their sons. This is the system producing predictable outcomes. Placing boys in environments where power is inconsistent and masculinity is tied directly to dominance and emotional development is unsupported, then they become men who are seeking out manosphere content, red pill ideologies, and hierarchical thinking, because they are trying to locate power within a system that denies it to them structurally, but tells them their maleness requires it. Black women talk about the sacrifice they made to raise these children, about how they gave everything. They carried everything. They held everything together when a man wouldn't. And here's the part that I feel like we're still trying to learn. Self-abandonment does not produce love. It produces resentment. And not just in you, in your children. Your children know that less of you actually exists, and they resent you for it. But mothers are self-abandoning for survival of everyone. But then these boys grow up into men and not see women as fully human. And people will ask, what went wrong? Nothing. Nothing went wrong at all. The system actually worked exactly how it should. We think that white men are so in love with white women, but it's white men leading the male loneliness epidemic. No women are satisfied with their men. The goals have never been stable families. The goal has been to keep women occupied. And the busier the family, the more work it takes to stabilize it. Because people who are constantly managing instability do not have time to question the system. And that is what Black women have been consistently and constantly managing. We don't have time to ask ourselves the question, are we raising a child or maintaining a condition? Religion has been one of the biggest comforts for the Black community, but it's also been a barrier. It reinforces hierarchy, submission, endurance. And somehow Black women are still one of the groups most occupied with Abrahamic religious beliefs. It helps reinforce that their suffering has a purpose. Rest will come later, I guess, when you die, and love is something that you endure towards. So even in spirituality, you are conditioned to accept imbalance so that you never question the system. You are just surviving inside of it. So the question isn't, how do you fix Black families or the Black community? The question should be, what is it that we are participating in that keeps producing the same outcomes? The system cannot sustain itself alone. It requires participation, adaptation, repetition. And Black motherhood has been one of the most powerful engines within it, not by choice, but by design. So we need to ask within Black motherhood, what is it that we need to stop reproducing? Because until that changes, nothing else will. Guys, if you haven't already, go ahead, subscribe to my channel. I look forward to the discussion in the comments, so ciao ciao for now.